definitely been a while since I last worked on this car, but I'm finally able to get back to it. I'm still working on bodywork, this time starting with getting this massive dent out of the fender. I have to remove this inner panel so I have access to hammer and dolly this big dent out. Now that I can actually hit the metal on both sides, I can start reforming the curve of the fender and work this crease out. The metal is quite malleable, like modeling clay. You just have to be patient and not swing the hammer with the force of Thor. Otherwise, you'll just create more work for yourself and stretching it the other way. Now that I've worked out most of the dent, I'll switch over to this metal shaping disc. This tool is just a piece of steel that creates heat through friction on all of the high spots. As it moves over the panel, the high spots get heated more than the surrounding area. Once they cool down, they'll shrink a little bit and flatten out. This can help reset an overworked panel to be pretty flat. It just takes a lot of time. I'm pretty happy with where this is at now. It's obviously not perfect, but I'm not sure it's going to improve much more from this. This at least gets me pretty close, and I can use filler to smooth the rest of it out later on. Now I just need to weld the inner panel back on, and this fender is done for now. Now that I've finished the metal work on the fenders, I can move on to some of the spots left on the body. This is the passenger lower quarter panel. I start by cutting out the area, making sure I go a bit past the holes so I don't miss any rust on the inside. You can see a lot of crap built up and rotted this away from the inside. I'm going to have to replace part of the rocker panel too. Well, at least this looks really good inside. I don't see any more corrosion in here, so I won't need to go any deeper. Now time to work on the patch panels.
Well, now that I've got my shape, I need to curve it. Enter English wheel.
An English wheel basically squishes the metal to form to the lower die. Just work it back and forth until you get the curve you want.
Pretty damn close.
Got the inner panel fitted. Now just need to tack it in and then very slowly fill it in around the edges. I learned my lesson from working on the roof. I went very slowly around the outer panel, tacking it in and giving it a lot of time to cool off. I didn't want to risk warping this area since the outer quarter panel is pretty thin. Now that it's all welded in, I'm going to move on and give that some time to cool off. Next up is to remove the trunk drop-down section so I can work on the passenger lower rear quarter. Some more hammer and dolly action, and it's looking a lot better. Now time to put in the drop-down replacement panel. This area was pretty tricky, and I had to section the new panel to install it. Normally, to replace this drop-down extension, the quarter panel would have to be removed, since it is spot welded between the tail panel and the quarter. Going that far would create a lot more damage than it would fix, so instead I decided to section the new panel to the old one. I'll butt weld and spot weld it in and finish it with a good seam sealer so it will be a solid repair. I still got a few more patches to make, but I want to switch gears to something more exciting. Time to get to work on the engine and transmission. Well, that was a short-lived trip. Transmission shop told me this is actually a 904 transmission and not a 727. So this changes things. Instead of complications with trying to find another 727, we're just gonna go modern. This is a 2015 5.7 Hemi, rated from Dodge at 375 horsepower. I think this will move it. To make this modern Hemi swap easier, I ordered some mounts and a center sump oil pan from Rallye. Now I just need to remove all the old junk so I can fit it to the subframe and check for any clearance issues. Well, it looks like a nice honest 5.7. I got the crank trigger. It's a cool engine, should run just fine. When I bought this swap, I didn't realize it came from a Charger Pursuit or police package. So instead of the 8-speed transmission, I got the older 5-speed NAG 1. I had already bought a transmission controller from Sound German Automotive for the 8-speed 8HP 70, so I sourced one of those and got it mounted to the engine. Not having a lift means you gotta be a little creative, though I won't recommend doing it this way because this still felt pretty sketchy. I opted to lower the body over the engine and trans because I knew it would be a lot easier to see anything hitting. So far, I am not running into any clearance issues. I am a little concerned about the floor to the firewall spot weld seam, so that might be something I modify or remove at a later point. But for now, I gotta remove the factory shift linkage so I can lift the engine and trans. It's looking really good actually. So far nothing is hitting, so I'm going to go ahead and bolt in the subframe and see if the trans mount will fit. Yeah. The alternator clears the frame rail too. Now that I've got the drivetrain mostly fitted, I'm starting to think I might need to reinforce the chassis. I had a comment on my last video saying I should get the braces to reinforce the unibody. So begins the snowball effect, but that is a future problem. For now, I need to get this trans mount in and see if it'll fit. Looks like I'll be making some tunnel modifications. Still got a lot of clearance on the floor to firewall seam. Here's the problem. A couple of tabs on the transmission are hitting the floor. I might be able to get away with just denting the floor a bit there. Cleaning the threads to mount the new oil filter adapter. Had to cut part of the drain tab so it doesn't hit the crossmember. Looks like I'll add sectioning the crossmember to the list. Make sure to Loctite your torque converter bolts. I had to get a new starter and extend the starter solenoid wire due to the 8-speed trans mounting on the driver's side. The GPEC, ECU, PCM, or whatever you want to call it, the computer, takes inputs from the body harness and runs to the engine itself. This makes it a little bit more complicated than like an LS swap. Luckily, an awesome company called Sublime Technologies, formerly known as DIY Hemi, they make a plug-and-play harness that takes the body harness connections to the computer and makes it really easy. I'll put a link to their channel and a website in the description. They saved me a ton of time and not having to make a harness and hours of poring over wiring diagrams. Just a few connections and it's ready to run. This is going to be straight hackery because I just want to hear this engine run since I have honestly no idea how many miles or what kind of shape it's in. Connecting the drive-by-wire throttle pedal to the Sublime harness. Uh-oh, supervisor checking up on me. shit. First crank, no good. It won't fix it, but why don't I just fix the intake air temp sensor in hopes that it does. Fitted a few more ground wires, and fuel pump relay is actually working now. Time to hook up the fuel pump. Got it plumbed to a gas can, and fuel system is primed up. A few of you clever people might have already guessed the issue, but watch me struggle in vain a bit more. Whatever. A lot of codes. I found a harness that I had left unplugged when I swapped transmissions. Cleared the codes after triple checking the harness and grounds. If you hadn't guessed it, the computer is security locked. In order to run this computer, I will have to send it in to get the hardware lock fixed before I can tune it with HP tuners and actually get it to run. These codes were actually only part of the issue. Rest assured, I will get this engine to run. Make sure to like and subscribe so you can see this car back on the road. For now, I will be waiting for a new computer and working on progressing on the other parts. Thanks for watching.